Part 1. The Warning. Klaxons screamed through the mining station Epsilon 7, their piercing wails cutting through the recycled air like a knife through flesh. Marcus Chen wiped the sweat from his brow, his mining suit heavy with accumulated dust from 12 hours of drilling through asteroid rock. He had been working the deep tunnels when the alarm started, and now he stood frozen in the main corridor, watching his fellow miners scatter like frightened animals. "What's happening?" Marcus shouted over the noise, grabbing the arm of a passing Zalathi worker. The blue-skinned alien's 4 eyes were wide with terror, pupils dilated to pinpoints. "Shadowclaw," the Zalathi whispered, the universal translator barely catching the word. "The Shadowclaw is here." Marcus felt his blood run cold. Every human who ventured into deep space knew the stories. The Shadowclaw wasn't just another alien predator. It was the apex hunter of the known galaxy. Standing 3 meters tall, covered in armor-like scales that could deflect plasma bolts, with claws that could slice through reinforced steel like paper. But worst of all were the stories of its intelligence. The Shadowclaw didn't just hunt, it stalked, it planned, it savored the fear of its prey. The station's commander, a gruff Terran woman named Captain Rodriguez, appeared on every screen throughout the facility. Her face was grim, jaw set with determination. "All personnel, this is not a drill. Long-range sensors have detected a Shadowclaw vessel approaching our position. Estimated time until arrival, 2 hours. Begin immediate evacuation procedures. Mining teams, abandon all equipment. Support staff, gather only essential supplies. Fighter pilots, prep your ships for escort duty." Marcus joined the surge of bodies rushing toward the docking bay. The crowd was a mix of species: humans, Zalathi, the insectoid Kreks, the silicon-based Thermians, all united in their desperate flight from the galaxy's most feared predator. As they ran, Marcus heard fragments of panicked conversation. "My cousin's ship was hit by a Shadowclaw near Vega Prime. They found it 3 weeks later. The hull was intact, but everyone inside, pieces. They say it can phase through solid matter, that walls mean nothing to it. I heard it keeps trophies, takes the heads of the bravest fighters from each species." The docking bay was chaos incarnate. Ships of every size and configuration were powering up, their engines creating a deafening roar. Marcus spotted his assigned evacuation vessel, a battered cargo hauler called the Lucky Strike. He pushed through the crowd, using his muscled frame to forge a path. "Move! Move! Move!" The ship's pilot, a human woman with cybernetic implants glowing along her temples, was herding people up the boarding ramp. "We've got room for 50 more, then we're dust." Marcus had 1 foot on the ramp when the lights went out. The entire station plunged into darkness so complete, it felt like being buried alive. Emergency power should have kicked in immediately, but nothing happened. In the pitch black, screams erupted from every direction. Bodies pressed against Marcus from all sides as panic transformed the crowd into a writhing mass of terror. Then came the sound. It started as a low vibration, felt more than heard, thrumming through the metal deck plates and into their bones. The vibration rose in pitch, becoming an otherworldly howl that seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere at once. It was the hunting cry of the Shadowclaw, a sound that triggered primal fear in every sentient species. Crimson emergency lights finally flickered to life, bathing everything in a hellish glow. The crowd had scattered, people stumbling over each other in their desperation to flee. Marcus saw the pilot of the Lucky Strike frantically working her controls, but the ship remained dead. "It's here," someone whimpered. "It's already here." Captain Rodriguez's voice crackled over the emergency comm system, distorted and breaking up. "All personnel, electromagnetic pulse, main power grid compromised. Defensive positions!" A Crex worker near Marcus suddenly pointed upward with one of its 4 arms, mandibles clicking in terror. Marcus followed the gesture and his heart nearly stopped. There, clinging to the ceiling of the massive docking bay like some nightmare spider, was a shadow that didn't belong. It moved with liquid grace, flowing between the support beams, always just at the edge of the emergency light's reach. "Nobody move," Marcus whispered, though he knew it was useless. The Shadow Claw could see in spectrums humans couldn't even imagine. Movement or stillness, it made no difference. The shadow dropped. It landed in the center of the fleeing crowd with an impact that shook the deck. In the crimson light, Marcus got his first real look at humanity's nightmare made flesh. The Shadow Claw stood taller than the tallest human, its body a perfect synthesis of predatory evolution. Scales like polished obsidian covered its muscled form, each one edged with what looked like tiny sensor filaments. Its head was elongated, almost reptilian, with 6 eyes arranged in pairs, 2 facing forward, 2 on the sides, 2 scanning behind. But it was the claws that drew the eye. 4 arms, each ending in talons that gleamed like surgical instruments, already dripping with blood. The creature moved through the crowd like a dancer, each motion precise and deliberate. It wasn't killing indiscriminately, it was choosing. A Zalathi engineer who stood his ground, trying to shield others, fell first. The Shadow Claw's claw passed through his protective gear like it wasn't there, and the brave alien crumpled without a sound. A human security officer opened fire with a plasma rifle. The bolts splashed harmlessly off the creature's scales. The Shadow Claw tilted its head, almost curious, before closing the distance in a blur of motion. The officer's scream cut off abruptly. Marcus pressed himself against a cargo container, trying to make himself invisible. His mining suit's heads-up display was going haywire, warning icons flashing as it detected the massive electromagnetic interference the Shadow Claw generated. Through the chaos, he saw others doing the same, hiding, praying, some simply paralyzed by fear. The Shadow Claw paused in its slaughter, raising its elongated head. The 6 eyes swiveled independently, scanning the bay. It made a sound that the translator couldn't process, something between a growl and electronic static. Then, impossibly, it spoke. "Humans," the word came out distorted, like it was being forced through vocal cords never meant for speech. "Where are the humans?" Marcus's blood turned to ice water. Everyone knew Shadow Claws were intelligent, but they weren't supposed to speak. They weren't supposed to hunt specific species. This changed everything. A Thermian near the Lucky Strike made a break for it, its crystalline body catching the emergency lights as it ran. The Shadow Claw's head snapped toward the motion. One of its arms extended impossibly long, the limbs stretching like rubber. The claw caught the Thermian mid-stride, lifting it off the ground. The Shadow Claw examined its catch with those 6 unblinking eyes, then tossed the alien aside with apparent disgust. "Not human," it growled. The creature began moving through the bay with renewed purpose, checking bodies, examining faces. It was looking for something specific, looking for humans. Marcus's mind raced. Why humans? What could Earth's newest spacefaring species possibly have that would interest the galaxy's apex predator? They had only been part of the galactic community for 50 years. They had no unique technology, no special resources. They were, by galactic standards, unremarkable. A child's cry pierced the air. Marcus turned to see a human boy, maybe 8 years old, separated from his parents in the chaos. He stood frozen in the open, tears streaming down his face as the Shadow Claw's attention fixed on him. "Human," the creature said with what might have been satisfaction. It began moving toward the child with deliberate steps. Marcus didn't remember making the decision to move. One moment he was hidden, safe, the next he was running. His mining suit's servos whined in protest as he pushed them beyond their limits. He scooped up the child and kept running, heading for the maintenance tunnels he knew from months of work. Behind him, the Shadow Claw roared. The sound was different now. Not the calculated hunting cry from before, but something primal and eager. The hunt was on. Marcus's boots pounded against the deck as he ran. The child clutched against his chest. His suit's motion tracker showed movement behind them, closing fast. The maintenance hatch was just ahead, a small opening that led into the station's guts. Marcus dove through it, twisting his body to protect the child as they tumbled into the narrow tunnel beyond. The Shadow Claw hit the hatch a second later. The metal screamed and buckled but held. Marcus didn't wait to see if it would try to tear through. He ran deeper into the maintenance tunnels, following paths he'd memorized during long shifts. The child whimpered against his chest, but didn't cry out. "It's okay," Marcus whispered, though he didn't believe it himself. "I've got you!" The tunnels were a maze of pipes and conduits, barely wide enough for a human in a mining suit. Marcus squeezed through gaps, ducked under low-hanging obstacles, always moving, always listening for sounds of pursuit. His suit's sensors were useless. The Shadow Claw's presence created too much interference. After what felt like hours, but was probably minutes, Marcus reached a maintenance room deep in the station's core. He sealed the door behind them and set the child down. In the dim light of his helmet lamp, he could see the boy was in shock, eyes wide and unfocused. "What's your name?" Marcus asked, trying to keep his voice calm. "Tommy," the boy stammered. "Where's my mom?" Marcus didn't have an answer for that. Instead, he checked his equipment. His mining laser was still functional, though he doubted it would do more than annoy a Shadow Claw. He had emergency rations, a basic med kit, and his suit's life support would last another 18 hours. Not much to work with. The floor vibrated. Marcus felt it through his boots, something heavy moving through the station. The Shadow Claw was hunting, and it wouldn't stop until it found them. "Tommy," Marcus said, kneeling to the boy's level, "we need to be very quiet and very clever, okay? There's a bad alien looking for us, but I'm not going to let it hurt you. I promise." It was a promise he had no idea how to keep, but as he looked into the child's terrified eyes, Marcus knew he would die before breaking it. The vibrations were getting closer. Marcus pulled up the station schematics on his helmet display. They were deep in the mining section, far from the docking bays. The evacuation ships had probably fled by now, leaving them stranded with the galaxy's deadliest predator. But the mining section had its own advantages. Marcus knew every tunnel, every shortcut, every hidden passage. A scratching sound echoed through the walls, metal on metal, deliberate and patient. The Shadow Claw was testing the barriers, looking for weakness. "We need to move," Marcus said. He picked up Tommy again and headed for the opposite exit. The maintenance tunnels connected to the old mining shafts, some of which extended kilometers into the asteroid. If they could reach the deep tunnels. The door behind them exploded inward. Marcus threw himself forward, shielding Tommy as shrapnel filled the air. He rolled to his feet and ran, not looking back. Behind them, he could hear the Shadow Claw forcing its bulk through the opening, scales scraping against metal. The mining shaft entrance was just ahead, a vertical drop into darkness. Marcus's suit had magnetic clamps and climbing gear, but using them would be slow. Too slow. He made a decision that would have terrified him under normal circumstances. "Hold on tight," he told Tommy, then jumped. They fell through darkness, Marcus's suit automatically deploying emergency thrusters to slow their descent. The shaft walls blurred past, lit by the occasional emergency beacon. Above them, a roar of frustration echoed down the shaft. The Shadow Claw couldn't follow, not this way. It would have to find another route. Marcus landed hard, his suit's shock absorbers taking most of the impact. They were in the deep mines now, kilometers below the station proper. The air was thinner here, recycled less frequently. His helmet light revealed a network of tunnels carved by automated miners, most abandoned when richer veins were found elsewhere. "You okay?" he asked Tommy. The boy nodded, though his face was pale with fear. Marcus's comm system crackled to life. Through the static, he heard scattered transmissions from other survivors. Some had made it to ships, others were hiding throughout the station. But one transmission made his blood run cold. "Tracking human life signs, moving through level 7. God help us. It's not just hunting, it's hurting them somewhere." The Shadow Claw wasn't killing every human it found. It was collecting them. Marcus switched off his comm to avoid detection and began moving deeper into the mines. His suit's mapping system showed dozens of passages, some leading to dead ends, others connecting to different sections of the asteroid. He chose a tunnel that led toward the old processing plant, abandoned 5 years ago when newer technology made it obsolete. Hours passed in tense silence, broken only by their footsteps and breathing. Tommy had fallen asleep against Marcus's chest, exhausted by fear and shock. Marcus kept moving, using his knowledge of the mines to stay ahead of their pursuer. But he could feel it out there, patient and relentless. He reached the processing plant as his suit's power indicator dipped below 50%. The massive industrial space was a graveyard of rusted machinery and broken conveyors. Marcus found a control room with reinforced walls and sealed them inside. He set Tommy down on an old chair and began searching for anything useful. That's when he found the logs. The plant's computer system was still partially functional, running on backup power. Marcus accessed the security files, hoping to find emergency protocols or hidden exits. Instead, he found something that made his hands shake. Video logs from 5 years ago when the plant was abandoned. But it wasn't abandoned because of newer technology. The footage showed workers fleeing in terror as something stalked through the machinery. The timestamp showed it happened over 3 days, people disappearing one by one until only empty corridors remained. The Shadow Claw had been here before. Marcus's mind reeled. This wasn't a random attack. The creature had been to this station before, had hunted here. But why return? What was it looking for? A bang on the control room door interrupted his thoughts. Not the violent smash of before, but a deliberate knock. Almost polite. "Human Marcus Chen?" The voice came through the door, clearer than before. The Shadow Claw had been practicing. "Mining specialist. Age 34. Born in New Shanghai, Earth. Joined Deep Space Mining Program to support family. Psychological profile indicates high protective instincts." Marcus felt ice in his veins. It knew who he was. It had accessed personnel files. "You have the human child Tommy Morrison with you," the Shadow Claw continued. "Age 8. Parents presumed deceased. You are not related. Yet you risk your life for him. This is interesting." "What do you want?" Marcus shouted through the door. There was a pause. When the Shadow Claw spoke again, there was something almost like curiosity in its tone. "Your species is young to the stars," it said. 50 Earth years since first contact. By galactic standards, you are infants. Weak, slow, fragile. You should be prey, nothing more. Yet, another pause. Yet you survive. You spread. You adapt. Other species speak of human unpredictability, human stubbornness, human... What is your word? Hope. We must understand. The Shadow Claw must understand. "We?" Marcus asked, though he dreaded the answer. "I am not alone, Marcus Chen. I am Scout, Herald, first of many. My kind have decided humanity must be tested. Some will be taken for study. Some will be killed to measure response. Some will be left to spread word, to create fear. You are interesting. A miner who fights, who protects young, not his own. You will make excellent study." Marcus looked at Tommy, still sleeping despite everything. The boy's face was peaceful, trusting. Marcus had made a promise. You want to understand humans? Marcus said, standing up. Then understand this. You'll have to go through me to get to him. The shadow claw made that untranslatable sound again. Maybe it was laughter. Yes, it said. This is what we seek. This defiance against superior predator. This illogical protection of weak. Show us, Marcus Chen. Show us what makes humanity worthy of fear. The door began to buckle under precise, measured blows. Marcus grabbed Tommy, waking him gently. We're going to run again, he said, but this time we're going to be smart about it. Marcus had spent months in these tunnels. He knew every echo, every air current, every unstable section marked with warning signs. If the Shadow Claw wanted to understand human stubbornness, he would give it a lesson it wouldn't forget. The door gave way as they slipped out through a ventilation shaft. The hunt resumed, but now Marcus wasn't just running. He was leading the Shadow Claw exactly where he wanted it to go. The abandoned processing plant held dangers the alien predator couldn't know about. Pockets of volatile gases from years of neglect, unstable support structures weakened by asteroid quakes, processing chemicals that became explosively unstable when mixed. Marcus Chen, miner and protector, would show this apex predator why humans had earned their place among the stars, not through superior strength or speed or technology, but through sheer determination and the willingness to do whatever it took to protect their own. Behind them, the Shadow Claw followed, eager to continue its test. It had no idea that the prey had become the planner, and that sometimes in the depths of space, even the galaxy's greatest predator could become the hunted. Part 2. The chemical storage tanks loomed before Marcus like sleeping giants, their corroded surfaces weeping toxic condensation in the dim emergency lighting. Each tank held enough industrial solvent to dissolve through a ship's hull, and after 5 years of neglect, their contents had become dangerously unstable. Marcus knew this because he'd filed the safety reports himself. Back when the company still cared about such things. Tommy clung to his hand as they moved between the tanks, the boy's small fingers trembling but trusting. Behind them, the Shadow Claw's footsteps rang against the metal grating, unhurried, confident. It thought it had them cornered. Stay close, Marcus whispered, guiding Tommy toward a maintenance ladder. His mining suit's display showed dangerous readings all around them. Methane pockets, compromised structural integrity, electromagnetic anomalies from decaying equipment. This whole section was a death trap waiting to happen. Perfect. The Shadow Claw emerged into the storage area, its massive frame moving with liquid grace despite its size. In the chemical plant's ghost light, its scales seemed to shift and ripple. Adaptive camouflage trying to match the industrial yellows and grays. All 6 eyes swiveled independently, tracking movement, heat signatures, even the subtle displacement of air. "Clever, Marcus Chen," the creature called out, its voice echoing off the metal walls. "You lead me to dangerous ground. You think human knowledge of environment gives advantage, but I have hunted in places that would kill your kind in seconds. Ammonia seas, gravity wells, the corona of dying stars." Marcus continued moving, using the maze of pipes and catwalks to stay out of direct sight. His suit's weight made stealth difficult, but the constant drip of chemicals and groaning of old metal provided cover. He needed to reach the control station at the far end. From there, he could trigger the emergency containment protocols. "Tell me," the Shadow Claw continued, seemingly unconcerned about Marcus's silence. "Why do you fight for the child? He offers you no evolutionary advantage, no genetic legacy. Among my kind, we would call this waste." Marcus gritted his teeth, focusing on the path ahead. But the alien's words stirred something in him. "That's the difference between us," he called back, unable to stay silent. "You see waste. We see worth." "Ah, he speaks!" The Shadow Claw's hunting cry reverberated through the chamber. "Explain this worth to me, human." Make me understand why your species dies for strangers. Marcus lifted Tommy up to the catwalk, then hauled himself up after. They were halfway to the control station now. You want to understand? Fine. Every human life has value, not because of what they can do for us, but simply because they exist. That boy you're hunting, he might grow up to be nobody special, or he might cure a disease, write a symphony, make someone laugh on their worst day. We protect that potential. Potential. The Shadow Claw tested the word. Uncertain future over certain present. Illogical. A pipe burst somewhere below them, releasing a cloud of yellow vapor. Marcus's suit immediately flashed warnings. Corrosive atmosphere detected. He grabbed Tommy and ran, the catwalk shaking under their combined weight. Behind them, the Shadow Claw leaped from tank to tank, its claws leaving deep gouges in the metal. You know what else is illogical? Marcus panted as they ran. Your whole species. You're perfect predators, but you're dying out. Yeah, we know about that. The birth rates, the empty hunting grounds. You're so focused on being the ultimate killers that you forgot how to be anything else. The Shadow Claw's roar shook dust from the ceiling. Marcus had hit a nerve. They reached the control station, a reinforced booth overlooking the storage area. Marcus shoved Tommy inside and slammed the door, engaging the emergency locks. Through the reinforced glass, he could see the Shadow Claw approaching, no longer playing with its prey. You dare speak of extinction to me? The creature's voice had lost its curious tone, replaced by cold fury. My kind have existed since before your son was born. We are eternal. Perfect. Perfect predators in an imperfect universe, Marcus shot back, his fingers flying over the control panel. Years of safety drills came back to him. Emergency containment, fire suppression, atmospheric purge. All the systems were still functional, waiting for someone to activate them. What happens when the prey runs out? When there's nothing left to hunt? The Shadow Claw reached the control booth and examined the reinforced door, its 6 eyes focused on the locking mechanism with predatory intelligence. There is always prey, human, always the weak for the strong to cull. That's where you're wrong. Marcus found what he was looking for, the manual override for the containment system. Sometimes the weak surprise you, sometimes they survive, sometimes they win. The Shadow Claw's claw began to glow with an eerie purple light. Marcus had heard about this but never believed it. The ability to phase through solid matter by manipulating molecular bonds. The claw passed through the door like it was made of smoke. No more running? Marcus Chen, the creature said. Time to join the others. Others? Marcus's hand hovered over the activation switch. The humans you've taken, they're still alive? Some. The interesting ones. Those who show what we seek to understand. Fear, courage, sacrifice, love. The alien spoke the last word like it tasted strange. Your species fascinates us because you embody contradictions. Weak yet resilient, individual yet collective, logical yet driven by emotion. The claw reached further through the door, searching for the lock mechanism. Tommy pressed against Marcus's leg, eyes wide but no longer crying. The boy had found his courage somewhere in their flight. You want to understand humanity? Marcus said, meeting all 6 of the creature's eyes. Then understand this. We're not just individuals. We're links in a chain that stretches from the first human to look at the stars to the last one who'll see them die. Every human who ever lived is part of who we are. Their dreams, their struggles, their sacrifices. That's why we protect each other. Because we're not just saving a life. We're saving part of ourselves. The Shadow Claw paused, its claw inches from the lock. Philosophy from a miner. Unexpected. Here's something else unexpected, Marcus said, and hit the activation switch. Alarms shrieked throughout the facility. Emergency containment protocols engaged with a grinding of ancient machinery. Blast doors slammed down sealing sections. Chemical suppression foam began flooding the storage area. Most importantly, the atmospheric purge system activated, preparing to vent the entire section into space. The Shadow Claw withdrew its claw and stepped back, assessing the new situation. "You would kill yourself and the child to stop me?" "No," Marcus said, already working on the next part of his plan. "I'm going to save him and stop you. Because that's what humans do. The impossible." He grabbed the emergency respirator from the wall and fitted it over Tommy's face. His suit would protect him for a while, but the boy needed help. The countdown timer showed 3 minutes until full atmospheric purge. 3 minutes to get Tommy to safety while keeping the Shadow Claw contained. The creature circled the control booth, testing the other walls. But Marcus had chosen this spot carefully. The booth was built to withstand chemical explosions. Even phasing abilities had limits, and the Shadow Claw couldn't phase its entire body, not without enormous energy expenditure. "You interest me more with each moment, Marcus Chen," the Shadow Claw said, "but this game ends now." It leaped impossibly high, claws catching the ceiling. Like a spider, it scuttled across the metal surface, heading for the ventilation grates. Marcus cursed. He'd forgotten the ceiling wasn't reinforced like the walls. He scooped up Tommy and burst out of the booth, running for the emergency escape tunnel he'd spotted on the schematics. Behind them, the Shadow Claw dropped through the ceiling into the booth they'd just vacated. The escape tunnel was narrow, barely wide enough for a human. Marcus had to remove his suit's bulkier components to fit, leaving him with just the basic life support. Tommy went first, crawling as fast as his small limbs could manage. Marcus followed, the tunnel walls scraping against his shoulders. Behind them, the Shadow Claw's roar of frustration echoed through the facility. It couldn't follow, not through this route. But it would find another way. It always did. The tunnel emerged in a processing substation 2 levels up. Marcus checked the atmospheric readings. Still safe here, but not for long once the purge reached them. He needed to get Tommy to a sealed section. "Marcus!" a voice crackled through his damaged comm unit. "Marcus Chen, is that you?" He recognized the voice. Sarah Kim, one of the shuttle pilots. "Sarah, you're still here?" "Barely. I've got 12 survivors holed up in Shuttle Bay 3. We managed to get one ship partially operational." "Where are you?" Marcus checked his position. "Industrial Section 7. I've got a kid with me." "The Shadow Claw is—" "I know. That thing has been systematically hunting humans throughout the station. It's taken at least 30 people. Marcus, we're detecting multiple ships incoming. This isn't just one creature anymore." Marcus's heart sank. Reinforcements. The Shadow Claw had called for backup. "How long until you can launch?" he asked. 20 minutes, maybe 15 if we skip safety checks. Can you make it?" Marcus looked at the route on his display. Through contested territory, past areas where other Shadow Claws might already be hunting, with a traumatized child and no proper equipment. "We'll make it," he said, projecting confidence he didn't feel. The journey became a nightmare of close calls and desperate gambles. Marcus's knowledge of the station's layout was the only thing keeping them ahead of pursuit. He led Tommy through maintenance shafts, abandoned quarters, even a section exposed to hard vacuum where his emergency suit barely kept them alive. They encountered other survivors along the way. A Thermian engineer who'd lost an arm, 2 human technicians carrying an injured Zalathi, a lone Krex warrior still clutching a useless plasma rifle. Marcus gathered them all, his group growing from 2 to 8 as they moved toward Shuttle Bay 3. "Why?" the Krex warrior asked as they paused to catch their breath. Its compound eyes studied Marcus with alien intensity. "Why gather us? We slow you down." Marcus checked Tommy's respirator, making sure the boy was still breathing easily. "Because that's what we do. Humans, I mean. We're pack animals at heart. We survive together or not at all. The predators will catch us because of this weakness," the Thermian observed, its crystalline form flickering with stress patterns. Maybe, Marcus admitted, but I'd rather die trying to save everyone than live knowing I left someone behind. The Krex made a clicking sound that might have been approval. The hive memory will remember this, human Marcus. If I die, my offspring will know of your courage. They pushed on, the sound of multiple shadow claws now echoing through the station. Marcus could hear them calling to each other in their untranslatable language, coordinating their hunt. The net was closing. Shuttle Bay 3 appeared before them like a promised land. Sarah had the blast doors open just wide enough to squeeze through. Marcus pushed the others through first. The injured Zalathi, the Thermian, the human technicians, the Krex warrior. Tommy went next, the boy finally breaking down in tears as friendly hands pulled him to safety. Marcus was halfway through when claws grabbed his leg. He looked back to see a shadow claw, not the original, but another one, smaller and younger looking. Its 6 eyes gleamed with hunger as it tried to drag him back. "Go!" Marcus shouted to Sarah. "Get them out of here!" "Not without you!" Sarah shouted back. The Krex warrior appeared in the doorway, plasma rifle raised. "For the hive memory," it said, and opened fire. The plasma bolts couldn't penetrate the Shadow Claw's scales, but they hurt. The creature released Marcus with a shriek of pain, giving him the seconds he needed to scramble through. The blast doors slammed shut just as 3 more Shadow Claws rounded the corner. Inside, the shuttle was indeed partially operational. Half its systems showed red on the diagnostic panel, but the engines were warming up. Sarah was already in the pilot's seat, hands flying over controls. "Strap in!" she yelled. "This is going to be rough." Marcus secured Tommy in a crash seat, then found his own position. Through the viewport, he could see Shadow Claws gathering outside the bay doors. Dozens of them, all focused on their escaping prey. "Bay doors aren't responding," Sarah reported. "We'll have to blow them." "Do it," Marcus said. Explosive bolts fired, and the massive bay doors flew outward into space. Atmosphere rushed out, carrying 2 Shadow Claws with it. The others had magnetically sealed themselves to the deck, weathering the decompression. Sarah fired the engines. The shuttle lurched forward, acceleration pressing them into their seats. They cleared the bay, cleared the station, heading for open space. "We did it," one of the technicians breathed. "We actually—" The shuttle shuddered. Through the rear viewport, Marcus could see Shadow Claw vessels detaching from the station, sleek, predatory ships that looked like they'd been grown rather than built. "They're coming after us," Sarah said grimly. "This boat can barely do half light. They'll catch us in minutes." Marcus unstrapped himself and moved to the communication console. "Then we make those minutes count. Broadcast everything. Wide beam, all frequencies. Let the whole galaxy know what's happening here." His fingers flew over the controls, uploading sensor logs, video footage, his own testimony. "This is Marcus Chen of Mining Station Epsilon 7. The Shadow Claws aren't just hunting anymore. They're studying us, testing us. They want to understand human nature, and they're willing to kill thousands to do it." One of the Shadow Claw ships fired. The shuttle rocked, shields failing. "But here's what they don't understand," Marcus continued, watching Tommy's terrified face and drawing strength from it. "Humans don't break easy. We survived ice ages, plagues, wars, and our own stupid mistakes. We made it to the stars through sheer stubbornness, and now these apex predators want to test us? Fine. Test away, because every human they kill becomes a martyr. Every story of survival becomes legend. Every act of sacrifice inspires 1,000 more." Another hit. The shuttle's hull began to breach. "You want to know what makes humanity special?" Marcus said, pulling Tommy close as air began to leak out. "We care. We love. We protect those weaker than ourselves. We tell stories that outlive us. We build things greater than ourselves. And most importantly, we never ever give up." The lead Shadow Claw ship pulled alongside them. Through the viewport, Marcus could see the original Shadow Claw, the one who'd started this hunt. It stood on the bridge of its ship, all 6 eyes fixed on him. Their eyes met across the vacuum of space, predator and prey, hunter and hunted. 2 products of evolution's different paths, studying each other in what might be their final moment. Then something impossible happened. The Shadow Claw raised one claw to its chest, a gesture Marcus had seen before in the xenobiology texts. It was a salute, a recognition between warriors. The Shadow Claw ship powered down its weapons. "What's happening?" Sarah asked, hardly daring to breathe. The comm system crackled to life. The original Shadow Claw's voice filled the cabin. "Marcus Chen, you have shown us what we sought. Not in victory, but in defeat. Not in strength, but in weakness turned to purpose. The test is concluded." "Test?" Marcus managed to say through his shock. "Your species stands at a crossroads," the Shadow Claw said. "In 50 years, you have spread further than races who had millennia. You adapt, you endure, you transform everything you touch. The galaxy fears what you might become. They asked us to evaluate the threat." Marcus held Tommy tighter. "And? You are not a threat," the Shadow Claw said. "You are a catalyst. Your empathy, your stories, your stubborn refusal to accept defeat. These things will change the galaxy. Some species will rise to meet your example. Others will fall, unable to adapt. But the change is inevitable." "So what now?" Marcus asked. "You just let us go." "Now we report our findings. The hunt is over, but know this, Marcus Chen. You have earned the attention of the Shadow Claw. We will be watching humanity's journey with great interest." The Shadow Claw ships began to pull away, leaving the damaged shuttle drifting. "Also," the alien added, almost as an afterthought, "you may wish to check your long-range sensors. I believe you will find a human rescue fleet approximately 7 minutes from your position. It seems your distress call was quite effective." The comm went dead. The Shadow Claw ships vanished into hyperspace, leaving only the stars and the approaching lights of human vessels. Marcus slumped in his seat, exhaustion hitting him like a physical weight. Tommy looked up at him with eyes that had seen too much for his age. "Are they really gone?" the boy asked. Marcus nodded. "Yeah, kid. They're gone. Will they come back?" Marcus thought about the Shadow Claw's words. Watching humanity's journey. It wasn't a threat. It was a promise. The apex predators of the galaxy would be keeping an eye on humanity's development. "Maybe," he said honestly. "But if they do, we'll be ready. Because that's what humans do, right? We learn, we adapt, we get stronger." Tommy managed a small smile. "And we protect each other." "That's right," Marcus said, ruffling the boy's hair. "We protect each other." As the rescue ships grew closer, Marcus thought about everything that had happened. A routine mining shift had become a test for humanity's soul. They'd passed, apparently, though he wasn't sure what that would mean for the future. But that was tomorrow's worry. Today they were alive. The survivors around him, human and alien alike, had faced the galaxy's greatest predator and lived to tell the tale. Their story would spread, joining the countless tales of human perseverance that echoed through the stars. The Shadow Claw had come seeking to understand humanity. Marcus wondered if it truly comprehended what it had found, not a species of warriors or conquerors, but something far more dangerous. A species that turned compassion into strength, sacrifice into victory, and stories into immortality. A species that looked at the impossible and said, "Watch me." The rescue ships docked with their failing shuttle. As medics rushed in to help the wounded, as Tommy was reunited with an aunt who'd feared him dead, as Sarah powered down the dying ship that had carried them to safety, Marcus allowed himself a moment of quiet pride. They'd been hunted by the galaxy's apex predator and survived. Not through superior firepower or technology, but through the simple, stubborn human refusal to abandon each other. The Shadow Claw had its answer. Now the galaxy would have to deal with the consequences of what that answer meant. Humanity wasn't just another spacefaring species. They were something new, something unpredictable, something that even the greatest predators had to respect. Marcus smiled, thinking of the Shadow Claw's salute. Predator recognizing predator, hunter acknowledging hunter. But humans weren't hunters, not really. They were something far more dangerous. They were protectors. And the galaxy had better be ready for what that meant. Part 3. 6 months had passed since the incident at Epsilon 7, and the galaxy would never be the same. Marcus Chen stood before the Galactic Council Assembly, the vast chamber filled with representatives from over 300 civilizations. The crystalline Thermians glowed in their section, the insectoid Kreks clustered in their hive formations, the ethereal Zalathi floated in their atmospheric bubbles, and scattered throughout, in numbers that would have been unthinkable just a year ago, were humans. The Shadow Claw report, as it had come to be known, had changed everything. The apex predator's assessment of humanity had spread through diplomatic channels like wildfire, sparking debates, fears, and unexpected hope across known space. Recognized for testimony, the council speaker announced, its mechanical voice echoing through the chamber. Marcus Chen, survivor of Epsilon 7, protector of the young. Marcus approached the testimony platform, feeling the weight of thousands of eyes upon him. He wasn't a diplomat or a politician, just a miner who'd done what he thought was right. But somehow, that had made him the perfect person to speak today. Honored representatives, Marcus began, his voice steady despite his nerves. 6 months ago, I was just another human trying to make a living in the deep void. Today, I stand here because the galaxy's greatest predator decided to test what makes us human. They found their answer. Now you want to know what that means for all of us. A ripple of unease passed through the non-human sections. The Shadow Claw report had been classified, but everyone knew the basics. Humanity had been evaluated and found to be a catalyst species. Nobody was quite sure what that meant. Let me tell you about Tommy Morrison, Marcus continued. 8 years old, orphaned during the attack. By every measure of galactic civilization, he was worthless. No skills, no resources, no immediate value to society. Any sensible species would have left him behind to save themselves. He paused, meeting the eyes of as many representatives as he could. But humans aren't sensible. We're not logical. We're not efficient. What we are is connected. To each other, to our past, to our future. When I picked up that boy and ran from the Shadow Claw, I wasn't thinking about the survival of the fittest. I was thinking about the kind of galaxy I wanted him to grow up in. The Kreks representative clicked its mandibles, a sign of agitation. The Shadow Claw report suggests humanity will transform galactic civilization. This concerns many of us. We have stability, order, predictability. Your species threatens this. Marcus nodded. You're right. We do threaten the status quo. But not through conquest or violence. We threaten it through example. He gestured to a section where humans sat beside Thermians. 6 months ago, Thermian-human relations were minimal. Our biologies are too different, our worlds too far apart. But after Epsilon 7, a human rescue team spent 3 days in temperatures that nearly killed them to save a Thermian colony from a reactor meltdown. Why? Because they heard the distress call and couldn't ignore it. The Thermian ambassador's crystalline form pulsed with warm light, acknowledging the truth of his words. Or look at the Kreks, Marcus continued. Your hive memory structure should make you incompatible with human individualism. But last month, human teachers introduced storytelling to Kreks larvae. Now your young ones are creating narratives, imagining themselves as individuals within the collective. Some of you see this as contamination. Others are calling it evolution. You speak of isolated incidents, the Zalathi representative interjected, its melodious voice tinged with concern. But the Shadowclaw report suggests something far more significant. It claims humanity will force the galaxy to adapt or perish. This sounds like a threat. Marcus took a deep breath. This was the heart of why he'd been asked to testify. It's not a threat. It's a mirror. Humanity shows you what you could be if you chose connection over isolation, empathy over efficiency, hope over fear. He pulled up a holographic display showing images from the past 6 months. Human medical teams working in alien hospitals, human engineers solving problems through unconventional thinking, human artists collaborating with alien cultures to create new forms of beauty. The Shadowclaw understood something that day, Marcus said. They saw that humanity's greatest weakness, our emotional connections, our illogical compassion, our stubborn hope, is actually our greatest strength. We don't just survive. We help others survive. We don't just endure. We make endurance meaningful. Pretty words, the Saurian delegate hissed, its reptilian features showing skepticism. But what of the dangers? Human unpredictability has already disrupted trade routes. Human emotion has sparked conflicts where cold logic would have maintained peace. Your species spreads chaos. Marcus couldn't deny it. Human integration into galactic society hadn't been smooth. Their tendency to form emotional bonds across species lines had complicated ancient alliances. Their refusal to accept impossible as an answer had led to both miraculous breakthroughs and spectacular disasters. You're right, he admitted. We're not perfect. We make mistakes. We act on emotion. We take risks that sensible species wouldn't take. But let me ask you something. When was the last time the galaxy truly moved forward? When was the last time something genuinely new emerged from our interactions? Silence greeted his question. The truth was uncomfortable. Galactic civilization had been largely static for millennia. Species interacted through careful protocols, maintaining their isolation even in cooperation. Progress happened, but slowly, cautiously, without real transformation. Humans change things, Marcus said simply. We can't help it. It's who we are. The question isn't whether we'll change the galaxy. We will. The question is whether you'll help shape that change or simply be swept along by it. A new voice entered the discussion. Deep, resonant, and terrifyingly familiar. Perhaps I might add perspective. The entire assembly turned as a figure emerged from the shadows of the observer section. The Shadowclaw moved with its characteristic fluid grace, its 6 eyes surveying the chamber. Gasps and cries of alarm echoed from various delegations. This was the same individual who had hunted Marcus, now standing in the heart of galactic government. I am Hunter Prime Vexathul, the Shadowclaw announced. I led the evaluation of humanity. I stand here now as official observer for my people, invited by this council to provide clarity on our findings. Marcus tensed, remembering their deadly game through Epsilon 7. But the Shadowclaw showed no aggression, only that same intense curiosity from before. You wonder why we tested humanity, Vexathul continued. The answer is simple. They scared us. Not through strength or technology, but through their nature. In 50 years, they had formed more cross-species bonds than most civilizations manage in centuries. They adapted to environments that should have killed them. They turned enemies into allies through sheer persistent friendship. We had to understand. The Shadowclaw moved to stand beside Marcus, predator and prey side by side before the galaxy. What we found defied our understanding. This human risked everything for a child that evolution said he should abandon. Others throughout the station did the same. They saved aliens who were competitors for resources. They formed bonds that offered no survival advantage. They chose meaning over existence. And this makes them dangerous? The Zalathi representative asked. No, Vexathul said. This makes them necessary. My species perfected predation. We became the ultimate hunters, and in doing so we began to stagnate. Without challenge, without growth, we face slow extinction. Humanity offers something we had lost: unpredictability, purpose beyond survival, the chance to become more than what evolution made us. The Shadow Claw turned to address the entire assembly. The galaxy stands at a crossroads. You can resist human influence, maintain your careful isolation, your predictable interactions. In time, you will fade as we are fading, perfect in your niches but unable to adapt to change. Or you can embrace what humanity offers: chaos, yes, but also growth, connection, transformation. Why should we trust the word of a predator? The Saurian delegate challenged. Vexathul made that untranslatable sound that might have been laughter. Because this predator learned something from its prey. I learned that strength comes in many forms, that survival isn't the only measure of success, that sometimes the courage to be vulnerable is the greatest power of all. The Shadow Claw extended one deadly claw toward Marcus. After a moment's hesitation, Marcus reached out and grasped it, human hand meeting alien claw in a gesture that would have been impossible months ago. Humanity is a catalyst, Vexathul said. They will change you, whether you wish it or not. The choice is whether you change with grace or resistance, whether you grow or merely react, whether you become part of something greater or cling to isolation until it becomes irrelevance. The assembly erupted in discussion. Representatives turned to confer with their delegations. The mechanical translators struggled to keep up with hundreds of languages speaking at once. Through it all, Marcus stood beside the being that had once hunted him, feeling the weight of history shifting. The council speaker called for order. When silence finally returned, it posed the question that hung in the air like a living thing. The matter before us is thus: shall humanity be granted full integration status, with all rights and responsibilities thereof? Or shall they remain probationary members, their influence carefully controlled and monitored? One by one, the votes were cast. Some species voted for control, fearing change. Others abstained, uncertain. But as the tally grew, something remarkable happened. Species that had been enemies for centuries found themselves voting the same way. Ancient alliances shifted as members chose different paths. When the final count came, full integration had won by a narrow margin. The chamber exploded in chaos. Some delegates stormed out in protest. Others seemed stunned by their own votes. But in the human section, there were tears of joy and relief. Marcus felt a hand on his shoulder. He turned to find Ambassador Sarah Kim, the same pilot who'd saved them from Epsilon 7, now serving humanity's diplomatic corps. "You did it," she said, eyes shining. "We all did it," Marcus corrected. "By being ourselves, by refusing to be anything else." Vexathul loomed beside them, studying the celebrating humans with all 6 eyes. "You realize this is only the beginning. Integration brings challenges. Not all species will accept you. Some will see you as contamination to be purged." Marcus nodded. "We know, but that's never stopped us before." "No," the Shadow Claw agreed, with what might have been admiration. "It hasn't." As the assembly dissolved into 100 different conversations, Marcus found himself thinking about Tommy. The boy was in school now, on a mixed-species colony where human children learned alongside young Kreks, Thermians, and a dozen other races. He was learning their languages, their customs, their stories, and teaching them human games, human songs, human dreams. That was the real victory, Marcus realized. Not the vote, not the political recognition, but the small, daily acts of connection. Human children playing with alien young. Human doctors learning alien medicine. Human artists collaborating across species lines. Each bond formed, each friendship forged, each moment of understanding was another thread in the web that would reshape the galaxy. "What are you thinking?" Sarah asked. Marcus smiled. I'm thinking about the future, about what the galaxy will look like when Tommy's generation grows up, when human stubbornness and alien wisdom combine, when our stories become their stories and theirs become ours. It won't be easy, Vexathul observed. Change never is. There will be those who resist, who fear, who fight to preserve the old ways. Let them come, Marcus said, surprising himself with the steel in his voice. Humanity has faced worse. We've survived ice ages and atomic wars. We've overcome our own hatred and fear. We've reached for the stars when everyone said it was impossible. A few scared aliens don't worry me. The Shadow Claw made that not-quite laughter sound again. You see? This is why we had to test you. This absurd confidence in the face of overwhelming odds. This belief that tomorrow can be better than today, despite all evidence to the contrary. It's madness. Maybe, Marcus agreed. But it's contagious madness, and that's what really scares them, isn't it? Not that we'll conquer them or destroy them, but that we'll inspire them. That will make them believe in possibilities they'd given up on. Around them, the great chamber was emptying. But the conversations continued in the corridors, in private meetings, in messages flashing between star systems. The vote was just the beginning. The real work of integration would take generations, but it would happen. Marcus was sure of that. Because humans were nothing if not persistent. They would keep reaching out, keep building bridges, keep telling stories that made the impossible seem achievable. They would stumble and fall and get back up again, dragging anyone nearby up with them. I should go, Vexathul said. My people will want a full report on these proceedings. But know this, Marcus Chen. You have earned the respect of the Shadow Claw. Not many prey can make that claim. Former prey, Marcus corrected with a grin. These days, I prefer to think of us as colleagues. All 6 of the alien's eyes blinked in what might have been surprise. Then it lowered its great head in acknowledgement. Colleagues, then, until we meet again. The Shadow Claw departed, leaving Marcus and Sarah alone in the vast chamber. The lights were dimming, the day's historic session coming to an end. So what now? Sarah asked. Back to mining? Marcus shook his head. I've been offered a position with the Integration Committee, helping smooth the transition, mediating disputes, building connections. It's not what I trained for, but it's what you're good at, Sarah finished. Protecting people, just on a larger scale now. They walked toward the exit, their footsteps echoing in the empty chamber. Behind them, the great seal of the Galactic Council gleamed in the fading light. Hundreds of symbols representing hundreds of worlds, with Earth's simple blue sphere now among them as a full member. The Shadow Claw was right about one thing, Marcus said as they reached the doors. This is just the beginning. We've got a lot of work ahead of us. Good thing humans are stubborn. Then, Sarah replied. Marcus thought about Tommy, about the other survivors of Epsilon 7, about the billions of humans spread across the galaxy, each one a potential bridge between species. He thought about the fears they'd have to overcome, the trust they'd have to build, the future they'd have to forge together. It would be hard. It would be messy. It would be dangerous. It would be human. And that, Marcus knew, was exactly why it would work. Because humanity's greatest gift to the galaxy wasn't their technology or their resources or even their stories. It was their unshakable belief that tomorrow could be better than today, and their willingness to fight for that belief no matter the odds. The galaxy had judged humanity and found them worthy of fear. But what it had really found was worthy of hope. The apex predator had tested them and discovered not prey, but partners, not subjects to be ruled, but catalysts for change. As Marcus stepped out into the station's main corridor, he saw members of a dozen species mingling in ways that would have been unthinkable a year ago. A human child was teaching a young Thermian a clapping game. A Krex warrior was sharing war stories with human veterans. A Zalathi artist was collaborating with human musicians to create something entirely new. This was the future the Shadow Claw had seen. This was what had scared them and excited them in equal measure. Not humanity alone, but humanity as part of something greater. A galaxy where connection mattered more than isolation, where empathy could overcome fear, where the impossible became possible because someone was stubborn enough to try. Marcus smiled, thinking of his journey from terrified miner to galactic advocate. He'd been hunted by the galaxy's most fearsome predator and survived. But more than that, he'd helped that predator understand what made humanity special. Now it was time to help the rest of the galaxy understand too. One connection at a time, one story at a time, one stubborn, hopeful, impossible human moment at a time. The work would never be finished. There would always be new challenges, new fears to overcome, new bridges to build. But that was okay. Because if there was one thing humans were good at, it was never giving up. The galaxy had tested humanity and found them wanting more, wanting better, wanting connection and meaning and hope. And humanity, being humanity, would keep reaching for those things until they grasped them, or die trying. But probably not dying, Marcus thought with a grin. After all, they were too stubborn for that. As he walked toward his new future, Marcus Chen, miner, protector, bridge builder, knew that the greatest adventure wasn't in surviving the hunt. It was in what came after. It was in proving that the human spirit, that strange mix of logic and emotion, strength and vulnerability, individual and collective, could transform not just a single life or a single station, but an entire galaxy. The hunt was over. The real work of building a better tomorrow had just begun, and humanity, in all its messy, chaotic, beautiful glory, was ready for the challenge.